I'm joined today by Senator Michael Testa. Michael, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Regina.
So we're here in the State House talking about budget issues because it is a subject that will be, talked about not just today, but for the next several months. And in leading up to that, GSI issued a report and really speaking to the idea of the rate of spending growth as well as taxes and revenue in the state. And one of the things we try to do, which maybe you can help us see how that relates to the budget as well, is we try to translate what all of this really means to our residents. So we talked about more spending will result in more taxes. And if we go on the path we're going on, we can go to three big sources of revenue, as you know, in the budget. One is income taxes. So we estimate that we'll have to raise taxes on everyone down to $100,000. If we go to sales tax, in order to generate enough money, we'd have to move the sales tax not just up to 7%, but in fact up to 9% to generate enough revenue. And then, of course, there is the much talked about corporate tax, in terms of the rate charged our largest employers in the state. And I know that's the subject of the day in terms of will that move or not. So I guess, all these options all seem to address increasing revenue, not really spending. So maybe we'd start with, how do you think about this? Will there be spending changes or tax rate changes, and how do you approach the budget?
Well, look, I've approached this budget now. This is my fifth budget, if anybody can believe that. We should have been tightening our belt a long time ago in the state of New Jersey. You take a look at the overall budget, and you think about the increases, about 60% increase from Governor Christie to Governor Murphy. We're on an unsustainable path, and I keep on hearing the themes of stronger and fairer. I keep on hearing another theme of affordability. We're never really addressing affordability, and what you just said about bringing that base down to $100,000 to increase income tax on. That isn't really a living wage in many portions of the state. Now, where I'm from in southern New Jersey, that is a living wage still, and a family can sustain themselves on that. But in North Jersey, where prices are skyrocketing, they have a very huge affordability issue. And taxing people, what's happening is, just like Margaret Thatcher said, eventually you run out of other people's money. The people with real money in the state of New Jersey are choosing other states. We have the greatest outward migration in the United States of America. The other thing that we have a real problem with is we have a great education system, K-12 as it's ranked, but we have the greatest brain drain in the United States of America. So not only are you seeing our young people realizing, hey, wait a minute, New Jersey just isn't affordable for me. You're having people who are the most mobile, those with the most money, the most marketable people. They're doing something like LeBron James did and taking their talents elsewhere to a different state. So the people who are left holding the bag are the very people who really can't afford all of these increases. And we haven't even touched upon the fare increases that, from New Jersey Transit, which is really hurting the middle class and lower class individuals.
And pile on top of that, of course, toll increases that were head faked in terms of not going to be advanced, but then they were approved. And they were up 50% as well since the beginning of the administration.
Absolutely. So, I keep on hearing Governor Murphy talking about the stronger and fairer New Jersey. And I don't want to necessarily sound like President Reagan, but I want to ask New Jerseyans, do they feel that their lives are stronger and fairer compared to 6 years ago? I don't think that anybody would actually say yes to that question.
Well, Senator, you mentioned you represent a district in the southern part of the state. Do you have certain priorities for the southern New Jersey in this budget?
In every single budget, tourism tax dollars that are generated by Cape May County, which I represent all of Cape May County, that last count, I believe it was $660 million of tourism tax dollars go to Trenton, and somehow they get placed into what I call the black hole of the general fund. That money should be going back to Cape May County for infrastructure. All of the roads that are used by the hundreds of thousands of visitors, the bridges that are used by hundreds of thousands of visitors, and our boardwalks, which are really, the lifeline of our economy in Cape May County, which are used for the summer months. Luckily, we were able to have a $100 million boardwalk preservation fund, which I was a prime sponsor of with the budget chair, Senator Paul Sarlo. So those are the real priorities, and those are some of the things I'm actually happy with that I've have been revealed within the last week of how much money is going to be given to those towns who applied for that money to preserve their boardwalks, because they are the economic engine of Cape May County and most of our shore towns.
Yes, yes. There's so much we could talk about, tourism as well as one of the larger tourist areas, Atlantic City. But I guess I wanted to wrap up and ask you a final question back to the budget process. So last year there was a lot of consternation about not being able to read it until the very last minute, and some last minute add-ons that were put in as it progressed. How's it been this year, and what's been your experience in this budget cycle?
More of the same. I mean, I hate to say that it is more of the same. I'm hoping that it'll be better, because we didn't get the budget until the night before it needed to be approved. And I'm hoping I'm not going to see all of the ridiculous pork spending like we saw last year. For instance, the one that was sort of in my crosshairs was the Pompidou Museum for Jersey City. I mean, we're talking about millions upon millions of dollars that are being spent on a French museum at times when New Jerseyans are really hurting, and they're wondering about, what food they're going to be able to put on the table, because we've seen that, meteoric rise in grocery prices, a rise in gas prices, a rise in inflation. We have a very real affordability problem, and I can say this, the Republican members of the Budget Committee and of our caucus have brought real-world solutions of tightening the belt in difficult times to the other side of the aisle. Unfortunately, they haven't taken any of our complaints seriously, nor the solutions. We're not just there screaming and yelling about, complaining about some of the issues. We've offered very real-world affordability solutions and cutting massive amounts of pork in the budget, and it's fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, maybe this year. I guess we can always have hope.
I have hope, but I don't have a lot of faith.
Thanks, Senator, for being with me.
Thank you so much, Regina.